This is KGW News at noon.
We start at noon with an update on the road closures in the Gorge. The icy conditions this morning caused a whole lot of issues, including multiple crashes on I-84, one of them deadly. As of right now, all eastbound lanes are closed starting in Troutdale. Thank you for joining us here at noon. I'm Christine Pitawanich. That closure on I-84 extends to Hood River, and at this point, all westbound lanes have reopened. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office tweeted this picture of the deadly crash. They say it happened about a mile west of Rooster Rock State Park. Deputies say there was an initial crash where no one was hurt, and as they were responding there was a second crash at the same location. A semi-truck apparently lost control on the ice and hit an SUV. The driver was outside of the car and was killed. We don't know when the interstate will reopen. And on the Washington side of the Gorge, SR 14 has reopened. There was a crash involving a jackknifed semi-truck in Washougal. That's been cleared, but WashDOT is only allowing passenger cars through right now. Semi-trucks will have to find a different route. Okay, Rod Hill joining us now. Rod, icy conditions this morning in the Gorge, and we're talking more icy conditions expected a little later this week.
That is correct, and I think the timeline of when those accidents started to happen on Interstate 84 was about the time the temperatures in that area went from just above freezing to 32, and just like that, there was freezing rain pretty widespread and very icy conditions. Now, right now, it has been a rainy day here in the valley and over the coast. That continues to be the case right now. Currently, it's actually fairly dry out in the Columbia River Gorge, and things are warming. See the Corbett now reporting light rain. Troutdale is now reporting rain all the way up into Bonneville. Now, temperatures as you head farther to the east toward Hood River are still quite chilly. Here are the numbers right now. I mean, Troutdale's just above 32, but that's all it takes, 33. And then we have light snow showers, or flurries anyway, continuing out in Hood River where it's only 27. Temperatures may not get up to freezing that far into the gorge this afternoon. Portland's at 47 right now, Salem 46, Kelso 42. It's 50 up in Astoria. Our day moving forward for everybody outside of the gorge, just a rainy day. Temperatures well up into the 40s. We will become dry fairly quickly this evening, and then we'll stay dry overnight tonight and during the day tomorrow. Thursday is still the beginning of what is expected to be ice coming into the Rose City. We'll have that forecast coming out.
Rod Hill keeping on top of all the weather. Thank you. Another pedestrian hit and killed by a car in Portland. It happened on Northeast Sandy near 141st. Officers found the man alive at the scene just before 6:30 yesterday evening, but he later died at the hospital. The driver stopped and is cooperating with investigators. Police are now asking anyone who might have seen that crash to contact them. 2022 has been the deadliest year on record for traffic crashes in Portland. 66 people have died. That is the highest number we've seen since 1990. And of the 66 people who died, 26 were pedestrians, 11 were on motorcycles, and 4 on bicycles. The latest crash on Northeast Sandy comes after another fatal pedestrian crash on Sunday night. Police say a car hit and killed a man around 9 o'clock on North Columbia Boulevard. PBOT says most fatalities happen in something called high crash corridors.
And that is where we are dedicating the majority of our resources to implementing safety improvements, broader investments in transforming and changing those roadways, whether it's through changing the actual number of travel lanes on that street and creating more space for other modes of travel, such as people biking and walking, adding additional crosswalks.
The Bureau of Transportation also says speed and impairment cause most of the crashes. Now to the ongoing shortage of public defenders. We're getting a closer look at the types of cases that are being dismissed in Multnomah County. The DA has been sharing a detailed report every week. Among the hundreds of cases being dropped and thousands more delayed are crimes like car theft, assault, and robbery. Investigative reporter Evan Watson takes a closer look.
A familiar scene in a Multnomah County courtroom. A judge, a defendant, but no public defense attorney.
There is no attorney to appoint to you today.
Willie Choatson is a public defender who says his peers are working as hard as they can, but it's not enough.
And there's not a shortage of attorneys. People are going to law school. They're just not choosing this work because it is hard, because it is stressful, because we are in the front lines, and because it is underpaid compared to other legal professions.
Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt says the lack of public defenders is an urgent threat to public safety. Individuals suspected of a crime have a right to counsel. Victims of a crime have a right to justice. In many cases, neither is happening. Between February and now, more than 300 criminal cases in Multnomah County were dismissed due to a lack of public defenders. More than 2,200 cases have been delayed until a later date in hopes that a public defense attorney will be available. Schmidt mentioned his frustration in a previous interview with KGW.
There is a whole host of factors that play negatively into our ability sometimes to bring a successful prosecution. Courts dismissing the cases because there's not a defense attorney is one of the most recent.
So what kinds of cases are being thrown out? New data from the DA's office shows more than half of the dismissed cases are property crimes, and a majority of those are car thefts. The DA's office reports 80 car theft cases were dismissed between February and November. Among person crimes, 9 assault cases and 6 robbery cases were dismissed for a lack of counsel. There are 2 other case categories that make up the bulk of remaining dismissed cases: a felon in possession of a gun and eluding police. About 25 cases of each were dismissed over the last 10 months.
I think it's important to understand, I think the pandemic worsened or exacerbated or revealed a lot of these problems. These problems are not new. There have been studies going back 20 years in Oregon that we're not funding public defense as much as we should.
Evan Watson, KGW News.
Well, if you plan on buying a new gas-powered car in Oregon in the next 12 or so years, get them before they're gone. Because on Monday, Oregon regulators approved a rule that would ban new gas-powered cars from being sold in the state by 2035. This is not a new concept, though. The vote falls in line with decisions made in both California and Washington, making Oregon the 3rd state to adopt such a rule. It's a gradual phase-in that won't start until 2026, and the rule applies only to new car sales. People will still be able to drive and buy used cars. But there are already concerns about charging infrastructure for electric vehicles, and some people just aren't sold on the changes.
This is a mandate. This is government telling Oregonians what they need to do. And we can say it's not limiting choice, but it is.
The state is expected to see large investments in electric vehicle charging stations through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act, both of which passed earlier this year. And while we're on the topic, those electric cars are only getting more popular. And as we just talked about, there are some real concerns about maybe not having enough charging stations for drivers. NBC's Jake Ward takes us on a road trip across the country to show us where charging is easier and where it takes some extra planning.
The dream of America has always been the dream of the open road, but that dream falls apart if your car runs out of juice.
The Biden administration is spending more than $7 billion to put 500,000 chargers on American roads.
But we have a long way to go. We borrowed this Bolt from Chevrolet because it's the most affordable American-made electric vehicle out there.
It starts at about $25,000.
Now, California is really the model of what the U.S. is going to need to look like. And to show you that, we're going to drive 120 miles between Los Angeles and San Diego. The Department of Energy estimates that there's about 2,900 places to charge within 5 miles of the route I'm going to take. That means it's easy to charge wherever I need to. At the grocery store, getting coffee, or catching the sunset at the beach. I made it to San Diego with 95 miles left over, but here's the thing, it's not this easy everywhere. This is Houston, Texas, and today I'm going to drive roughly the same distance from here to Austin in the same model car. Major cities and a major highway, but charging is a major inconvenience. We're coming up on our halfway point, LaGrange, Texas. Texas is, in fact, one of the most charging-ready states, but it's no California. I really only have a couple of options. There's this one at a Domino's. How often have you seen these things in use?
Rarely ever. I've only seen one person ever actually sit out here and successfully be able to use them.
It's no wonder none of these seem to work. Nope, nope, nope.
At this point, our final option, one random charger at this antique dealer's DIY hotel.
Oh man, this is literally my last chance. I do not have the mileage to get to Austin. Charge cord not fully inserted. Charging. Yes. We're going to make it to Austin. Why is it so hard to come by a charger in this part of Texas?
I think possibly because it's such a heavy oil state. I don't know.
That's the history of this
People like
place.
combustible engines, I'm not going to lie. You know, I feel like when there's a need for something, you supply the need, and it got you here.
Half an hour on this old school charger got me an extra 15 miles.
If you live in the wrong part of the state and you drive for a living, this doesn't work. In California, EVs are already a part of life, but here in Texas, they've only just begun to spend federal money to make that possible. We just barely made it here. And right now, that is the story of driving an EV long distances across so much of America. Jake Ward, NBC News, Austin, and San Diego.